Hello there, and welcome. Well, it's Friday, so it's time for an anomaly. And the anomaly this Friday is called a C in physics. When I was in high school, it was pretty easy for me. In fact, school was, for me, most of the time, lots of fun. I liked going. I liked the social aspect of it. Although I complained a lot about not being cool, I still found school absolutely entertaining. It was great to be around other children. It was great to be in rooms with kids and have stories to tell and stories to hear and subjects to discuss. I was made for school. But when I got to college, things got complicated. First of all, when I got to college, I wanted to fall in love. That's what really was in my mind at that time. I was 17 when I graduated, and I started college that summer. And really, that was my main goal. I wanted to fall in love. I realize it now. At the time, I don't know if I would have been able to articulate it or admit it that clearly, but that's what I wanted to do. After all, the two women that I considered the paragons of womanhood, Anola and my mother, both met their husbands in college. So that's where you went to grow up. That's where you went to become a woman. And I was very much motivated by that. And since I had never had to work very hard at school, and that's the real truth, I never really had to work very hard at school. College sort of presented me with some conundrums. First of all, the college I went to, New Mexico Tech, was about 80% male, 20% female, and I was boy crazy. I mean, boy crazy. And so I was excited to be there. I didn't really understand sexism very much because my family, the women in my family, were always held in high regard. They were highly respected. So it would be the first time I would meet sort of institutional sexism, and confronted with it, all of us that were there at that school dealt with it in different ways. But none of us, it never occurred to any of us to sue. And, we were harassed and disrespected all the time. It was just part of the life there. So that part of it was interesting. And of course, my attempts at falling in love, the men that I became attracted to and I spent time with were not the best of choices. And because my social interest was greater than my academic interest, my grades suffered. I really struggled those first few semesters in school because I simply did not study. And I didn't even know how to study because I'd never had to before. It had always come so easily. And that school definitely stepped up the challenge. But this particular grade was more significant than all the rest, and this is why. I tried. Up until I got this grade, I wasn't trying much at anything. And I really didn't like the people I met in the physics department. The men I met in the physics department were not just mildly sexist. They were absolutely, directly, straightforwardly sexist and saw the women at the school as unnecessary and just an impediment to the work that they intended to do. This is really interesting because one of the most important professors in the department was a woman, but I never took a class with her because I wasn't a very thoughtful human at that point. So I didn't get good grades in physics the first two semesters. The third semester I took physics, I think it was the third semester I took physics, I really tried. For the first time in my life, I really put in the effort and worked hard to try to do well at that class. I studied, I kept careful notes, I read, I really put in a lot of effort to be good at physics that semester. And the grades would come out, unlike now where they can kind of come out instantly and you check them online. Then we would go to the professors' offices or the TA's offices. For the labs, we'd go to the TA's offices, and for the classes, we'd go to the professor's offices, and they'd have a little list posted with our ID, our student ID number, and our grade. And my mom had come to get me for Christmas break, and I said I needed to go over and check this one last grade because it was the last final that I took. And she said, okay. And it was a C. And I was devastated. I had gotten worse grades than a C. But I had never gotten a worse grade when I tried. I had never gotten less than a B when I tried on something. Never. Not ever. If I tried, my usual result was A. That was where I spent most of my time as a human being, in the A zone. And here I was, I finally had buckled down at college. It had taken all that time to buckle down, and it was a C. And I was demolished by it. I could not stop crying. And Mother was really disarmed by this. She had been worried about my grades when I first started, and we had talked about it a lot, but this C, when I got this C, it undid me. It unseamed me. And it was an awful experience, but I must tell you, it helped me as a teacher to have gone through it. Because I never forgot that feeling of thinking, I finally try, and the result is a C? What's the point? Why am I doing this? Why? And of course, Mother tried to talk me off the cliff, but I was not ready to be talked off the cliff at the time. I was just miserable. And soon after that, Daddy died, which made everything exponentially worse. It felt like all of the universe was tumbling down. And what remained was just ruins. And so when I began to teach and I began to grade young people and give them grades, I tried to be sensitive to that feeling. Now, there were times when I had to dig in my heels and say, no, I'm not changing that grade. You got the grade you got. There were times when I had to really reflect and say, now, am I being entirely fair with this? Have I somehow or another been too hard, too strict, too unrelentingly driven with this student? And maybe I should really re-examine what's here and be more aware of that. Those things happened, but whenever I saw a kid who was really devastated by a grade that I thought they shouldn't be devastated about, I thought about my C in physics. And I thought about how important it is for all of us to learn what it means to be disappointed and to express our understanding of that disappointment, especially teachers. Our lives, most people's lives, are not blessing after blessing after blessing after blessing. Even lives that are rich in blessings don't always appear that way. The suffering that we do and the struggle that we have against it, we sometimes need to be encouraged. And if you have a kid come in and they're looking at their grade and they're saying, I don't understand this, I really tried, rather than just changing the grade, which is, I think, something that some teachers do, rather than just dismissing the kid outright, which I think is something that some teachers do, sit down with that kid and try to be their advocate. And try to talk them through the suffering of a disappointment. Because big disappointments are coming. Big ones. Huge. Age is coming. Death is coming. And our suffering as we age gets more and more profound. In a normal life, that's how it works. You lose things as you go along, and you have to learn to deal with the disappointments of life. You have to learn to let yourself grieve them. I had to learn to grieve the fact that I would never have children, the fact that I would never be married. I had to learn that. And in a way, that sea sort of got me ready for some worse ones. And though at the time I did not respond to Mother in the best and most positive way, her expression of love and empathy for me did eventually sink in. It did eventually comfort me. It helped me get perspective on one dumb little grade that nobody was going to care about again in my life. Certainly not the professor, and truth be told, not me. After a while, and it wasn't too long a while, I was back in the saddle and trying to complete my degree. But by golly, folks, it was a disappointment. And it was something that I was eventually going to go through one way or another. Whether it was a grade, or a broken heart, or broken health, or broken finances, I was going to need to grieve, and I was going to need to grow past it. Grades can help us take tiny steps toward learning to do that. Bad grades especially. That's it for today. I hope you have a glorious rest of the day. And I hope you see me again soon, you gorgeous people.